Hey guys, today I'm going to review the album MBV by My Bloody Valentine. My Bloody Valentine are an Irish band from Dublin, formed back in 1983. They kind of invented the genre of shoegaze from their sound. It's kind of like a, if you don't know what shoegaze is, it's like a heavily distorted, lots of reverb, bending pitch. It's a really noisy kind of sound. Would be the best description, I guess you could say, of it. They released an album called Loveless back in 1991, which has kind of got legendary status. Yeah, that was kind of the album which invented shoegaze. And basically how it went was generally like it was simple, kind of simple, catchy pop hooks disguised with these really heavily distortion, reverb, bending of pitches and that. Like as I said before, it's like a noisy, really pop music. It was quite simple, but it was so very well done, and yeah, there's a lot of people who really love the album, including me. MBV kind of builds on the sound that Loveless produced. The first 3 tracks particularly have almost identical sound that you would have heard on Loveless, like the guitar, singing, vocals, all of that sort of stuff just sounds like it very well may have been B-side to Loveless. But it also kind of builds with some new kind of sounds, and I'll get into that as I go through track by track in a minute. So My Bloody Valentine reformed back in 2007, I believe, and Kevin Shields, who is the main writer, I guess, he announced a new album coming in November last year, and the album was very quietly released yesterday, which was the February 3rd. It almost looks like a bit of a trend recently. There's been a couple of bands, like off the top of my head, Death Grips and Godspeed You Black Emperor both had really quiet releases with basically no announcement. They just... Actually, I guess Death Grips, at least we knew one was coming. Godspeed, I don't know if we knew quite as well. But yeah, they both were just released with, like, nobody knew a date beforehand. But yeah, I think that's enough on the actual boring side of it. Let's get into the music itself. It opens up with a track called She Found Now. Instantly greeted by the same kind of sound that you would have heard on Loveless, as I said. Kevin Shields' vocals, exactly the same. Guitar sound, exactly the same. Pacing, everything. It was just, yeah. The actual hook itself is really quite subtle though. They're all quite catchy and out there on Loveless, but yeah, this one's very subtle, and it was actually a bit off-putting to start with. I did have to listen to it a couple of times. For the record, I have listened to this album 6 times. I know I'm reviewing it like less than 24 hours it came out, but I have listened to it, trust me, a lot, and with pleasure, to be honest. So yeah, as I was saying, the subtle hook was a little bit off-putting to start with. It did take some more listens to kind of grasp what was going on. It has quite a eerie feel to it. A lot of this album did actually, kind of a dark underlying kind of sound. Does that make sense? I don't know. Just very subtle, but it just sounded a bit darker itself. The hook itself in this was quite a bit psychedelic. It really reminded me of Tame Impala actually, mainly because they're psychedelic as well, obviously. But yeah, there was no drums throughout the whole track, which kind of gave it a sometimes feel, sometimes being a track from Loveless. I thought the track was a little bit weak for an opener. It was probably the weakest on the album for me, and I'm not the only one that thought this, because I actually listened along with the great people of Mew, and they were agreeing with me. Yeah, not a bad track though. Just a little bit weak in terms of others on the album. The second track, Only Tomorrow, again sounds like that Loveless sound. This time with Belinda Butcher's vocals. They also remain basically unchanged from back in 1991. The hook itself is a lot less subtle, much more like what would have been on Loveless. And also, I don't want to be comparing Loveless to this. I'm not going to be comparing it in quality, just in terms of sound, just because there's not really much that sounds like My Bloody Valentine. I don't know how to describe it overly accurately either without comparing, so keep that in mind. It has this really thick guitar tone, very much deeper than their usual stuff, and it's absolutely beautiful. I loved it. The solo guitar comes in kind of in the second half and also the end, and it kind of mixes it up again. It just comes in perfectly. My description of this, like this solo, it was really beautiful. I don't want to sound like too pretentious or anything, but it kind of sounded a bit like, it had this really sorrowful sound. It sounded like it was written by someone who had like no hope or something like that. Does that make sense? Sounds like the solo of a man who's lost everything or something. It was very nice. I don't want to sound too my head up my ass, but That's just a good description of it. The next track, Who Sees You, again, very much the same sound. A lot more pitch shifting in this track. There hadn't been too much prior. Again, there was a more subtle hook like the first track. Guitar prog, like in terms of the guitar and chord progression and that. The second guitar comes in to mix it up, sounds great. Song overall is very eerie again, like the first one. It kind of ends in an instant though. This was something that actually brought up a little bit of a discussion, whether it was like it had a bit of a hidden meaning. Because these first 3 tracks were very much sounding like Loveless, and the ones after it sound quite different. A lot of people were like suggesting, well, maybe it's just like it's instant end of an era type thing. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you have an opinion on that. I don't know. Track itself though was very good. The ending was a little bit too sudden though for my liking. There was another one on this album which had a similar ending. It kind of a little bit off-putting. The next track is this, and yes, different sound straight up. As I said, like that last track was kind of the last one that sounds like Loveless. Quite a electronic sound to start with this. It sounded a lot like an accordion, the main synth. That was the main chord progression in that, and of course there's other sounds in there. It was a really subtle background bass drum which kind of gives it pacing the whole time. It was definitely a different track in terms of sound. I haven't heard anything like that from them before, and I shouldn't say that because all of these tracks are very much different to their usual stuff. The next track, If I Am, a little bit of a return to their normal sound, but still had a lot of other elements. It's still a lot more experimental than their other stuff. Had their kind of this sweeping, heavily psychedelic guitar with a, it was really nice, that, and a quite like a, I guess like just a normal sounding guitar, which is a little bit unusual for this, as it was a solo that came in. It had a really odd drum beat, this track, and I really liked it. It really fit it really well. A lot of new sounds while kind of experimenting safely, this track. Does that make sense? It's a great track though. And the next track very much changes it up again, New You. It sounds kind of, it starts off with this like 80s new wave sound to it. It was very off-putting actually to start with. It was very much not something that I would have expected from them. And even like the start of the track, I'm not a big fan of now after all these listens. It probably will build on me a bit more, so keep that in mind. It's got a much different pacing. It kind of feels a little bit out of place, but yeah, stuff kind of gets weird towards the end of the album, so everything almost feels a bit out of place. Yeah, it's got this tremolo guitar, this 80s synth, and yeah, as a bit more instruments come in, I kind of like it a bit more. It became a little bit more tolerable to me. Just that starting sound was kind of a bit, I don't know, it didn't really go well with me. But I think that's more my opinion. It's not that it's a bad track. And the next track, In Another Way. Now this song is just incredible. I kind of struggled to review this because I couldn't keep focused when I listened to it because I loved it so much. But I'll attempt to anyways. It kind of had this like odd chord and vocal progression and drums to start with. Everything's a little bit weird in a nice way. The drums are very much present. They're kind of like this, almost like a trip hop, hip hop kind of sound. It's kind of hard to explain without listening to it. It has this like the song kind of changes into this just incredible sound. It has this like choppy guitar and synth, and like I can't really tell you why I like it. I just do. It just sounds flipping amazing. It almost sounds like it's just made for me. Does it make sense? Do you guys have tracks where it kind of really resonates with you? It's just perfect for your mind, how you like your music. I don't know. But yeah, I absolutely love this track. I had to have a break afterwards because I was just in another world. The ending was quite sudden, though. That was kind of, it was like there might have been a hidden meaning. I don't know, but it was a little bit too sudden for me. I think I was probably just enjoying myself too much. The next track, Nothing Is. My first thought was just like, what? It's got this very driving, repetitive, aggressive kind of sound. There's like one chord throughout the whole song, and the drum beat is exactly the same throughout the whole song. I think it only changes by volume and aggression throughout the song. I think there is a second guitar that comes in very subtly with like this repeating pull-off riff. But yeah, as I said, it was really subtle. It did require me a couple of listens to really pick that up. It actually kind of reminds me of Swans a lot, this track. There's one particular song which I can't remember what it is. It's off their new album, but if you've heard that, you'd probably think the same. But yeah, it's a really great track. It's just very much a change of pace. About just as much of a change of pace as the next track, 1 to 2. I knew one of the songs off this album like had drum and bass influences. Kevin Shields said that in an interview, and that's very obvious in this. The drum and bass drum beat instantly comes in. You're like, yep, that's this is that track. It's got this really odd, heavily affected guitar. It's really quite psychedelic. It's nice. I think both Kevin and Belinda, I know Kevin's singing, I think Belinda is as well, I'm not 100% sure, which is kind of nice, gives it a little bit of closure, as this is the closing track. That is if Belinda's actually singing, I'm not 100% sure. She's not anywhere near as loud as Kevin, or just harmonises too perfectly, and it's hard to tell. But yeah, very odd pacing for the guitar riff. Like, it's got this drum and bass, really intense, fast drum beat, and then this guitar is really quite a, the timing's all over the place, and it gives it really a crazy kind of feel. It's great. Yeah, as I said, like that really fast drum beat gives a real sense of urgency. The amount of sounds as well, sounds that are really aggressive and driving, it really does give it a this really urgent feeling. It almost feels like a drug trip on speed or something compared to the rest of the album, and like the rest of the album's experimental enough. And yeah, it kind of finishes off with this like nice little flange over a drum beat. It's a great closer. It is a very experimental track. I think, yeah, particularly these last two tracks are very much experimental. So was the one before that, which I absolutely loved. And that's it for the tracks. All pretty damn good. So for the score, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10, which is pretty damn good score. You guys don't really know how I review albums yet, but 9.5 is pretty freaking high for me. I'm pretty strict. But yeah, you know, it's definitely a worthy successor to Loveless, both in terms of quality and sound progression. The sound changes from Loveless, but also you get that kind of familiar stuff as well. It was supposed to be a bit like their album Isn't Anything. I don't really agree with that though. It kind of just builds again. It's not like any of their stuff they've done before. It just builds. It's obviously them, but yeah, it's just different again. It's great. One of the main problems I had with it was kind of like the amount of variance in the album. How much it varies. It kind of gave it like a bit of. It felt like it didn't flow overly great. It kind of stumbled a little bit. That was my main strife with the album. I feel like the songs could have kind of flown into each other a bit better, but again, like that may have been deliberate to give it kind of a sense of all over the place, because obviously the last two tracks were intending to do that. I was kind of initially put off by the amount of tracks there are, because there is only 9 tracks, which isn't too much. I guess it's not overly odd or anything for today, but it certainly made it easier to comprehend though, because particularly with the more experimental stuff, it's kind of yeah, it leaves you feeling exhausted. And yeah, finishing the album overall, I felt quite exhausted but satisfied at the same time. No sexual references intended. Kind of like, if you guys are a fan of Swans, you'll know when you finish one of their good albums, like it's certainly a challenge to get through it. It feels exhausting by the end of it, but you know it's a great album. It's really satisfying. But yeah, but I think that's about everything I want to say. Thanks guys for listening. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe if you like, if you're interested in more reviews. If you want me to review anything in particular, if you've got something coming up or something that's out, let me know. I might just do a review of it. I don't have enough people suggesting anything yet, so it probably will get featured. As long as it's not something really crappy that I'm just going to hate. So yeah, until next time, goodbye.